welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ here on September the 6th in Mesa, Arizona, our virtual meeting today. I'm thankful because we have two very special announcements for you. The first announcement is we have a very special guest speaker for you today. I'm thankful to introduce Sister Michelle Watson. Will be sharing her testimony of what the Lord has done for her. It's a beautiful journey, and I hope you enjoy it today as much as I had the privilege of sharing it with her earlier this week. In addition to that, this will be the last purely virtual meeting that you will be seeing. I'm excited to announce that next week we'll be opening the branch. Now, what becomes very important is I need everyone tuned in to your emails, tuned in to Facebook and Instagram so that you can follow our announcements, because due to our social distancing guidelines and different protocols that we have to abide by to be compliant with the city and the state and the general church, we're going to have to divide up into a blue group and a gold group. And each group will have to worship every other weekend for now. Remember, this is only temporary, and we'll be together, everyone, at some point. But for now, to safely start meeting, we will be dividing up. So you'll be receiving an email for which weekends you are assigned to. If you have any questions or you don't get the email this coming week, please reach out to us. Our new email address for here in the Mesa branch is mesa@thechurchofjesuschrist.org. You may email us directly. You can message us on Facebook or on Instagram, and we can get that information for you. If you are staying home and you are not quite ready to venture out into church yet, that's okay. We're still going to be remaining virtual for you. You can find us every Sunday on YouTube. We'll still be here. You can find us every Wednesday night on our Blue Jeans app, and you can join us from home. And we want to make sure that everyone still has access to the wonderful gospel of Jesus Christ. So without further ado, I give to you a discussion with Sister Michelle Watson, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have her today. God bless you. All right. Well, Sister Michelle, thank you again for joining us tonight and being willing to be a guinea pig, so to speak, but more importantly, being willing to share your testimony and what the Lord has done for you. And I want to start out, and why don't we get to know you a little bit? And we'll go way back as far as, when were you baptized, and when did you start to understand that God was working in your life?
Well, I was born and raised in the church, so I always kind of had a concept of faith, of the Lord, of Jesus. And when I was 15, I asked for my baptism. And I was, looking back, I was just kind of wanting, I looked around and I saw people who believed in the Lord, and I saw that there was something good about that life. There was something that I wanted about that. I wanted to give my life to the Lord, but I was more interested in kind of like this aspect of like joining, I want to join. I want to be on board with this because I see that it's good. And then it wasn't until later in my after I was baptized that I really realized, no, this isn't, I just came to a little bit more of a maturity of like, I am a sinner who needs a savior, and that was when I think I really started to mature. So even though I took that step and asked for my baptism, I think it was a little bit later, a few years later, when I realized it's not that I want this, it's that I need this.
That's beautiful. And it's interesting, it is a walk and a journey. Yeah, and I look at how spiritually mature, quote unquote, I was at age just before I turned 18, getting baptized. And I look back and say, man, I had so much to learn at that point, and even all the mistakes I made after that. But when God sort of knocks on your heart like that, you understand that this is what I need to do. But after that, there still comes a lot of learning, I think, in our lives.
Definitely.
That's beautiful. One thing that some people may know about you is you have a very active role in the gospel blog. How did you first get involved in that?
You know, that is a great question. It was like 2011 because I'm thinking back to where I was living at the time. It was like 2011-ish. And the Gospel News had was going through a like a redesign process or something, and they were going to take away the if any of you remember the old Gospel News is their church newspaper, they had the blessings, the marriages, the change of addresses, all on that back page. And they were like, we're not going to do this anymore. What should we do with them? And honestly, Brother AJ, I cannot remember. I know that that's how it started. Was I was somehow involved with the Gospel News, and we were wondering what were we going to do with this information. And then one thing led to another, and I remember saying, well, why don't we do a blog? Why don't we do a blog? The Lady Circle's been doing a blog for a number of, for a while, and that's been working out. What if we did one for the general membership? And dear brother Jerry Valenti said, go ahead. He said, sure, go, and he goes, start it up, and I think he thought if it's going to go anywhere, it'll go somewhere, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, and that'll be fine. And so I set up a little WordPress site at the time. It wasn't even part of the General Church website. And we just kind of started with a few columnists, and then we just did an article. We just posted an article every day, Monday through Friday, and we just kept going. And it's been 8 years. It's crazy. It's been a lot
That's
of articles.
amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't know it's been that long already.
I know. Whew. And some of the columnists have been on for the entire time. And it's funny because many of the people who've written faithfully for the blog are in outposts, in small branches, or by themselves, in kind of like isolated, and it's been a way for them to stay connected, and it's been a blessing way for them
So
to
cool.
participate.
Can anyone, if I'm interested, I'm a writer or enjoy that, can anyone write for the blog, or how can we get involved?
Well, it's only the elite people who are like really, really good at writing. So if you're just kidding. Of course, anybody can write for the blog. Anybody can, because we all have a testimony. And that's kind of like how I feel tonight. I don't feel like I'm anyone special. I just have a testimony that the Lord gave me, just like everybody else. And I'm always interested in hearing what other people's testimonies are. I think a lot of people feel the same way. And that's why on the blog, we kind of have different types of articles. Some are testimonies, like this is something that happened. Like we have Miracle Monday. Every Monday we do like an experience or testimony, big or small. And then other articles are more devotional types. So sometimes somebody will, say, I've had this thought on my mind and I thought I would write a blog article about it. So those types of articles are definitely welcome too, and anybody can write for the blog. We have a church email address, and you just can send your article there. You can reach out to me directly, but email's great, and maybe I can give you the email address, and you can get it out there to anybody who might have an experience or a testimony that they want to share, or any type of, like I said, a spiritual thought, or maybe you teach a class and you think this would make a nice blog article. Those type of things are so welcome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think sometimes people come into the church and we have these two separate lives. We have what we do on Sunday and what we do Monday through Friday for our job or our young people. We go to school. And it's hard to sometimes merge that. We come in and we have our routine on Sundays. Obviously, that's a little off right now, hence doing this. But I think what's beautiful is you're a very talented writer, and you've proofread for a number of brothers and sisters who have written books. So you have this beautiful natural talent, and you've been able to use that for God. And I think that's so important for us, is that we find things that energize us and things that bring us joy, and we can make that a blessing for the Lord. And if you have a talent, God can use that, even if it's a little bit. He can magnify that so much. And I love that it's something that is unique to you and something that you love, but you do it for the Lord. And I want to encourage people to if there's something that you do, if you're good at organization, if you're good at, um, some of our brothers and sisters have, done work around the church and, drywall, stuff like that. It can range all over the place, but you can use it for the Lord. Or even taking that to our brothers and sisters where, I've heard, well, somebody needed tile work at their house, and one of our brothers is laying tile at their house. So these natural gifts we can use to be a blessing to God. And, seeing the gospel blog, now 8 years is crazy. How the Lord has taken that and run with it. And I think it touches so many people. And, thank God for you and all the writers who, dedicate time to that. It's beautiful. Did you find that it was hard making that transition from something outside of church, which you enjoy, and bringing that in?
A little bit, yeah, because when you do something professionally, you tend to bring that professional aspect to it, but at the same time, it's not. It's the nice thing is it can be a little bit more relaxed. Like I remember at the beginning, I would really edit the articles, and then I realized I'm like, I don't want all the articles to sound like me. I want them to sound like the person that wrote them. And so it was a little bit of a shift there, for me to loosen up a little bit, but at the same time, it wasn't something that was so conscious. And it's funny because it wasn't like, oh, this is a talent that I have. It was more like you mentioned, like, this is something that I enjoy. This is something that I enjoy. I enjoy doing this kind of thing. I enjoy reading people's testimonies. I enjoy reading spiritual things, and this is something that I can sustain. I felt like I could sustain it. And I guess like you said, those things that like feed you spiritually, the Lord will like figure out a way for you to be able to, I think, serve others in those ways. Like there's always those like things that we don't want to do, but we know we should do them. You know what I mean? Like those, like kind of like those overcoming the hurdle, type things in our spiritual life. But then there are the things that we just like actually really enjoy. And it's so nice when the Lord opens up a door to allow us to do those things that actually like feed us spiritually, but also have an aspect of service to them. It's a big blessing.
Yeah, it's energizing to us, and I think that energy, excites us to do even more for the Lord. So I encourage everyone to find what you're good at and what the talents that God has given you, and use them for Him, and watch what He can do, and He'll open up doors that you never even thought were possible.
Yeah, and sometimes I think like, oh, it's just a small thing. It's just a little article, but there have been times where people have emailed me and said, I don't know if you know this, but that article came on this specific day. Or sometimes I'll get an article that like connects with like an apostle's message, or I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like just the timing, because I scheduled them about a month in advance. So I kind of like schedule them and then I move on to the next one and so sometimes they'll just happen to be scheduled at these times where people needed to hear them, or they just kind of, like I said, kind of articles will connect just kind of randomly, and I'll notice it after the fact, like, oh, didn't really notice that because I uploaded it a month ago and I forgot, and you think like that's a small thing, but it could be something very, big for somebody in the Lord. And I think that for me, it took a long time for me to realize like the work that was truly important,
Right.
You want to do big, important things with your life, but now as I've gotten older, I realize that sometimes the small things are actually the most important.
Yeah. And you think of some of the testimonies, how, that one person needed it that day. And that's what the gospel's all about. Christ said he'd leave the 99 to go after the one. We're looking to change the world one life at a time. That's our goal, that we can share the light of Jesus with people. And it does have to be at an intimate level like that. I think it's so important. So my next question, and people might notice that it seems a little dark because it's a little late, because we both have little kids who are running around all day long. And we have to schedule these around our kids. You have two beautiful boys who we love to spend time with. would you mind sharing your testimony about them and your guys' journey together to get to this point with them?
Definitely. So this is, like I guess you could call it like a life-defining testimony. It was Michael and I, we got married. We were young, we got married and we were excited to have a family, but it wasn't happening. And this is, obviously something that I've like written about on the blog. So I know that some of you know the exact story that I'm about to say. So I thank you for bearing with me. But we couldn't have kids. And at first we were like, oh, this is we're just gonna pray about this ourselves, we're just gonna keep this to ourselves. It's very personal, it's really embarrassing, like let's just keep this to ourselves. And so we prayed about it, but nothing was happening. And so we said, oh, okay, we're gonna share this with, we're gonna just share it with people. We're just not gonna worry, we're just gonna like spill our guts and tell everybody that we have a need. And then that was kind of like the next step. We opened up, we shared about it, and then nothing happened. And we were like, man, wow, this is really taking a long time, and so we kind of embarked on this period of long suffering where we were asking for this specific thing from the Lord that we felt was a good thing, that we felt was not outside of his will. And we had to wait for it. And I think that it was something different for both of Michael and I. I think that we both experienced what it was like to have patience and wait for God to answer a prayer, but neither of us, I think, had really experienced what it was like to be asked to partake of long suffering. Not short suffering. It was, and it took us 6 years to conceive a child. And over that 6 years, we asked many questions of ourselves and the Lord, and we really did grow a lot. And I could share more things, but one thing I do want to share about that is that the Lord did give us many experiences and confirmations along the way that he was going to answer our prayers. And you would think, well, so why were you worried the whole time? You knew what the end result was gonna be. Why were you stressing so much about it actually happening? And it's so funny because looking back, I'm like, why did we stress out so much about it? But I think it was, even though the Lord reinforced every step of the way, like, I'm gonna take care of you, trust me, I have an end in mind. People have experiences about us having kids, not vague experiences that we weren't, that it wasn't really, like it could be kind of go either way. It was like there were like some pretty definite experiences. And so you think like even with those, it was hard to go through the time of waiting. Is it really going to happen? Is it really, is that expected end that the Lord promised, is it going to be fulfilled? And I just feel like it's something that is just a strong parallel to what the Lord is doing, like the Lord's great plan for the world. We know like what he has in store. We know that I know this is like getting very like big and broad right now, but like we know he's going to restore Israel, right? We know he's got all these big plans for the world and for the church, but we stress about how it's going to happen. The details, we're in the waiting period. You know what I mean? And I just feel like the Lord helped us to understand the concept of this long suffering, hanging in there with him over a long period of time, and not throwing in the towel or giving up, that kind of thing. And then after 6 years, the promise was fulfilled.
Beautiful. Yeah, how did it affect your marriage? I look at, we know people in our lives where there's been an incredible struggle, and you see the fork in the road where some people, it destroys a marriage. And on the other side, you have people where you see it strengthen a marriage, and the bond between those people grow together. What was it? What things did you guys learn together, and how did you get through it together?
That's a great question. You know, I give like so much credit to the Lord here because it's true. You think like it's those like it's those little things, like those little choices um that come up where you have the choice to either reinforce your spouse and say, it's okay, I love you, like we're going to get through this together, or you have the choice to say, this is a really big disappointment. You're a really big disappointment, like those things that drive a wedge and that build a wall. And so I think it's those little things that every day we were, faced with either are we going to build walls that um, drive us further apart and isolate us, or um, are we going to not allow that? And I also give a lot of credit to my husband. He is a wonderful man, and he just would not allow me to. He would not allow me to talk bad about myself or disrespect myself or victimize myself. He just wouldn't allow.
Hmm.
He constantly reinforced his love and acceptance of me, and it was very, very hard because I was saying all these, negative things in my mind to myself, like, oh, look at this nice young man. He could have married anyone, and look at who he got, like you just think about all the terrible things that we say to ourselves, about the things that make us vulnerable and our insecurities and the things where we feel like we failed or that we haven't measured up. And Michael really just he was very good about never allowing that to be reinforced by him, because he knew the kind of like what my internal monologue was, and he was able to combat that. And I think the Lord does that with us, no matter what we're going through. So often we Satan wants us to feel worthless and like we have nothing to offer, and that um there's just no point, or what a big disappointment. And the Lord is saying, you know what? I can work with you, I can, sure, you're, like for me, I was not capable in and of myself. The Lord was able, and he was good. And so I just, I think that just that constant acceptance and love was what kept those walls from being built between us.
It's great. You think about the scripture where it says, "Husbands, love your wives," and in those scenarios, where most of us are hardwired, where we have the solution and we have the words to say to fix it, and we can logic our way through that problem. And well, maybe if you just looked at it this way, when if you look at the scriptures, it's very clear that it's our job to show our spouses love. And we don't have to fix the problem. We don't have to verbalize how to fix a problem right then and there. And I think that's a wonderful example of the scriptures coming to life in a beautiful marriage. Is when you have a husband like that who comes through and reaffirms just love to get you guys through that. And I think we've done the same marriage seminar that you guys have done, the Pink and Blue, and we talk about this crazy cycle that you can get on. And it would have been very easy in that moment where you were struggling for Michael to say, well, if we just looked at it this way, everything would be great. But by just showing love, it reaffirms and it keeps those walls out of your marriage. And I think that's a beautiful example of that.
And he didn't understand, what I was going through a lot of the times. And so I know that there were some times where he was like, I wish I could just wave a magic wand and fix this for you, like you said. But it just wasn't his to fix, but he did what he could do, and the Lord did what he could do. You know what I mean? Like Michael did what he was called to do, which was to love me, and not and it was the Lord that did the miracle for us.
Right.
And he could just do what he could do, and it was enough.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, this was a life-defining moment for you guys, and it was a very long journey. Was it always easy with your relationship with God?
No, yeah, that's a great question. You know, I always, I guess kind of like there were kind of like some major things that I worked through in my own personal relationship with God. And one of them was this whole idea of um, like we all know that we can't like deserve anything from God. And I knew that in my mind, but this trial really made me understand it. I, I knew that I couldn't earn anything from him, that I couldn't like merit anything from him. But in secret, I thought, well, if I'm really, really good, and I'm like, and I just, do all of my spiritual things, and I just keep, I'm a real A plus, Christian girl. I could earn it, and it's silly, to admit, and embarrassing to admit, but I came to a realization that I was not going to get this prayer answered because I was good, that it was going to be answered because the Lord was going to be good to us on his own terms and not on mine. And that was something that we grew in to understand as well, just like, that this was out of our hands. There were things that we could do. There were avenues that we explored. We did explore medical treatments. We explored adoption options. We looked into our options. We, we weren't, we didn't want to just like throw up our hands and say, we're just not going to do anything, because we didn't want to be wimpy. We didn't want to be like afraid to take any steps whatsoever toward, some type of path, we didn't know what path the Lord had for us, but we also didn't want to, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. I'm kind of going from one idea into the next, but like, we weren't sure when we should wait on God and when we should take action steps in faith. Does that make sense? This was something we
Great
grappled
sense.
with like none other. We had no idea. We were like, should we take steps of faith toward one of these like options? Like could we look into some adoptions? Could we look into some medical treatments? These are options available to us. Are they of God? Are they not? And or should we just like do nothing? Should we do absolutely nothing and just wait? That was very, very hard for us. And we just kind of embraced the idea that if we could take a step in what we felt was faith and obedience to God, then we would take it and just see where it led. And some of those steps led nowhere. They did not lead to an answer. And then other steps, because ultimately it was the Lord coming through for us, in the end, without any medical intervention or anything like that. And so, but it helped us to know what steps to take. And then there were steps that we were like, we cannot take this step in what we feel is obedience, or we're doing this more out of just having something to do, to feel like we're doing something. Does that make sense? Or we're feeling very restless and fearful right now, so we're going to take this step. If we felt like that was the motivation for the step, we hung back and didn't. But if we felt like, we can really take this step in faith, and we feel like we're being obedient to God, we can move forward and see where this goes. If that makes sense. Like one of the steps that we felt like made a really big difference was getting anointed. That actually like made a difference. And then other steps they were clear, like I said, they didn't really lead anywhere.
I think it's so important that you pointed out is we had all these options in front of us, but we wanted the Lord to show us which option. We struggle with that every day. Is we have do I stay with this job? Do I get a new job? Is this the person I'm supposed to date? Do I need to change gears? Do I need to fix this relationship? We have all these decisions, and oftentimes we pray and we have a predetermined answer in our mind that, well,
Yes.
this is how I want it to go, and I'm going to go down this road until the Lord just knocks me over. But the whole time He's been like gently hinting at you, no, you should probably be going, you should have turned left here. But we're so dead set on something, and that's where all the options you pointed out are not evil or in any way, but it's what did God want for your journey and your relationship. And so many times we pick, what's behind door A, and we don't care if God wanted us to open door C, or we don't want to hear it because we really wanted what was behind door A. And that's, I think, the challenge in all of our spiritual walks. Just like you said at the very beginning, we're baptized and we make this commitment to the Lord, but do we fully understand what that is at that moment? And I know for me, I didn't. I knew that I needed to sacrifice for Him, but now I look back and through all the years how I've grown spiritually, I understand that I need to give it more to the Lord. So
Absolutely. I completely agree. Like, there have been many times where I felt like, you know what? Like I said, we did, and obviously we didn't do it all perfectly. So there were certain steps that I look back and I know they were motivated by just this, like I said, like a feeling of restlessness, like nothing's happened. Maybe we should take things into our own hands. Maybe we should do this. And sometimes it's very hard once you start down one of those roads to stop, to say, we're going to stop this, like for us, like it was some of the medical treatment plans, you know what I mean? Because it was very easy to just take the next step and the next step and the next step. And at some point we said, you know what? We're just not going to do this anymore. We feel like this is not leading anywhere. And we kind of pulled the plug on that. And it's hard.
yeah.
But like we just couldn't take any steps in obedience or faith anymore in that one. And we had, like you said, to detour, to turn where the Lord was nudging us.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I have preached about it, and we say, well, you need to have patience and you need to have faith, and that word long suffering just kind of sticks out to me tonight. It's really easy to say that on my end of the stick on this one, and it's really easy to stand up on Sunday and say you need to do this, but when I haven't gone through it. I know what the Word of God says, but all of our struggles are very different. And I love that perspective where we can say that, but there was this trial that went with it, and that long suffering that got you guys to this point. And so it's not easy.
No, and I look back and I wish I could have, I wish I could have had more joy in the promises that we were given even at the beginning of the trial. We had some beautiful promises that were given to us. And if I could have just put more faith in those and had more joy in that period of long suffering, I know that sounds like an oxymoron, having joy in a period of long suffering, but if I could have just said, you know what, I'm just gonna serve the Lord. I'm not gonna let this paralyze my service to Him. I'm not gonna let this poison my relationship with Him. I'm just going to wait on Him and like, of course, it's easy for me to say now on the other side of the trial, like you said, it's like, well, easy for you to say, Sister Michelle, the Lord came through for you and He granted you what you asked for. What about me? I don't know if I'm going to get, my prayer answered, and I just, but for me, I wish if I could talk to myself when I was going through it, to just say, just trust in the promises that you've been given and just, have joy where you are right now. And I know that's so easy to say, but that's what I would tell
Mhm.
myself.
Yeah, there was a sermon, I remember it was Joy in the Journey. And it's easy to say that. And, I know Michael and I have talked about that. When you don't have kids, you're very flexible. You can go to, you guys spend a lot of time in San Carlos when you lived in Mesa, and you drove every Sunday to be a blessing to the saints there when there was no minister. That's not an easy drive with two little boys, to do every Sunday. And, worrying about nap time and everything, but to try to logic through that right then and there, that, look how flexible we are. You feel, well, God, are you out there? Are you even listening to me? I'm down on my knees every night and I got nothing here. But when you look back, like you said, you have the spiritual maturity and say, well, look what we were able to do before this beautiful gift. Look what we were able to do as we went through this journey with him. And but it's a challenge, and I want everyone to realize tonight that it's okay to have those feelings that, God, where are you? Or am I doing it right? Those are natural human feelings, but we need to get to that point where we understand that, Lord, I'm going to submit to you. We're going to get there on this journey. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to put my faith in you, and you're going to get us there.
Definitely. Like, yeah, there were times when I would fall into, because there wasn't anything to do about it, at certain points, there weren't any steps to take. There wasn't any way that I could, like, feel like I was making progress along this, in terms of natural progress. You know what I mean? I was always making spiritual progress behind the scenes. I just didn't realize it. Like, doing those introspective things that you just mentioned, like saying, God, praying, reaching out to him, like all those spiritual things. And I just kind of lost my train of thought. But I just remember, like, that when there was no progress to be made, really, I felt like I was kind of in a stagnant place. That's when I was the most vulnerable to these, feelings of, real, like, deep feelings of sadness, like kind of like a downward spiral, you know what I mean? Where you feel like, oh, this is just, nothing good is happening. This is so bad. And I remember, I'm so, so thankful for the people in my life that would intervene at those times. The people that I reached out to, like my mother was she was always there to listen to me, but at the same time, she wouldn't tolerate me going down that spiral. And I really appreciate now some of the things that she said to me. I remember some of the very specific things that she said to me to cut me off, when I was basically just like being down on myself, being down on God, like, I don't want anyone to think that there weren't those moments, that it was always just this, this just plowing through in faith. There were some major ups and downs, but I'm really thankful for the people that empathized with me, but also gave me a good dose of reality when I needed it, some perspective. It's easy to feel like, I'm like ashamed to think of the times that I just magnified this problem into something that was way bigger than what it was. And I appreciate now the people that helped me to put it into, like, real perspective.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's so, beautiful, purpose of the church, and, that we have all these, wonderful brothers and sisters and even extended family where we all have experiences that we can go from. And that's why I appreciate you so much, your vulnerability tonight and sharing this, because you won't be the first or the last couple that struggles with this, but the testimony that you have, the long suffering, can be a blessing to others. And sometimes we become so ashamed of kind of the journey that we had, and we say, well, I don't want to talk about this in church, but that testimony that God has given you can be, that light to point you back to Jesus Christ. So we shouldn't be ashamed of where God has brought us from, and the trials that we've been through, because we can use that for his kingdom. If we can use it to help our young people, to help brothers and sisters, and help people understand who Christ is. And, when you read the stories, sometimes it seems so distant to me. And that's why I love testimony and I love, doing things like this, because we see that God is still alive and he still hasn't changed. And, the same miracles we saw before, we see miracles now in our lives. And, your two little boys are two beautiful miracles that were, 6 years in the making. And, there was a lot of ups and downs and bumps in the road, but God came through with, through all those blessings that he promised you guys.
Yes. There was a sister who said to us when this was a long time before we had our children, but there was a sister who knew that we were struggling, and she said so strongly, she told us, she said, you're gonna, you are going to grow so much through this. This trial is going to be the biggest blessing in your whole life. And I was not at a point in my journey to hear that. I was like, well, I didn't like reject it. I was just like, yeah, I bet it will. I bet we'll learn a lot, but now I cannot emphasize enough how true her words were. It was like she was prophesying to us that day, just that it would be the biggest blessing in our lives. And it truly has been a big, beautiful testimony in our lives.
Yeah. And, for all of us who have prayed too, getting to see that, from the outside looking in, obviously we weren't the ones, but, who went through the struggle, but, you have the same, anxiety and the weight, praying for you guys, and to see it, as part of our family, you see those little boys running around. We praise God that he answers our prayers and he is faithful.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, one of the most wonderful times of our life was being able to tell everyone that their prayers were answered. Yeah, those are like when I'm like having a bad time, or I'm like struggling with worrying too much or having bad thoughts, and I just need to focus on something good. That's what I go to. When we were able to tell our family, our parents, we made a bunch of phone calls to people who had diligently prayed for us and followed up with us through the years, and we called them and told them the news, and it was just, we did it. I just look back on those memories, and they bring such joy. They never fail to bring such joy.
It's awesome. It's beautiful. And it's an incredible testimony. And I thank you for spending some time tonight and sharing it. And it excites me every time I think about it. And we rehearse it. And obviously your blog articles that we've read about it, it gives us more insight. And if people haven't read those articles, we're going to direct you to the gospel blog. You can go back and find them and read them in a little more detail. And if you're a writer and you enjoy writing, you're going to reach out to Sister Michelle and give us some more articles so we can hear your testimony. But I think it was a beautiful reminder that, no matter where we are at in our journey, God can use us, and he can use our natural talents. And, despite our long suffering, God is faithful and he always provides for us. So I thank you again. I thank you for your friendship and your willingness to testify tonight. And we'll continue to pray for your young family, and as you guys are a blessing to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share. Thank you for listening. I don't pretend to have all the answers or know anything. The only thing I know for sure is that God is good. He was good to me, and he still is, and he is every day.
Amen. It's beautiful. I'm so grateful for Sister Michelle and Brother Michael's wonderful testimony, and I'm thankful that they're so willing to share it. And that's my prayer for you, that I want you to be able to share what God has done for you in your lives, because your testimony can change other people's lives. It can point them to Jesus Christ. And many of your testimonies continue to strengthen me in my walk with Jesus Christ, because it helps me to see that God is still alive, that God's working not only in my life, but in my brothers and sisters' lives, my family's lives, and my friends' lives. And I want to leave you with this verse. It comes from Colossians, the 1st chapter, and it says, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, strengthened with all might according to his glorious power, unto all patience and long suffering with joyfulness. Think about that verse as you go about your week today. Think about Sister Michelle and Brother Michael's wonderful testimony, how they remained faithful and they saw the wonderful mercies and blessings of the Lord. So wherever you're at today, spiritually, hang in there. Continue to fast, continue to pray, continue to seek the Lord, and he has promised us that he will bless you. Have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing many of you in the upcoming week. If you have questions, again, reach out to us, and I look forward to seeing you soon. May God bless you.